Good evening, and I will call to order the November 2022 regular meeting of the Millwood City Council. It is 7 p.m., and at this time, I would like to lead with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Van Hees, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and thank you to Mr. Van Hees. So, Ms. Jansen, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Beasy.
She is excused because of telecommunication difficulties this evening.
Councilmember Kohler.
Present.
Councilmember Van Hees.
I'm here.
Councilmember Sander.
Present.
Councilmember Stravens.
Present.
Please let the record reflect that Councilmember Stravens is attending by conference call telephonically, and please note for the record that we do have a quorum +1 to transact tonight's business before the council. So at this time, we have a couple of items on the agenda that I need to note. If you would please turn to item 7B, the public hearing on the 2023 preliminary budget. Our treasurer is ill this evening and is not able to present that budget at this time. So item 7B will not be handled. We will have to have a special meeting, and we will set that special meeting at the time for the next meeting, but we will need a special meeting prior to our regular meeting. So when we get to item number 13, we will look at folks' schedule. So Mr. Stravens, please note that we will be asking for a special meeting.
Very good, thank you.
One point of order. I would like to open the hearing tonight. Otherwise, we have to republish notice of the public hearing for preliminary budget. So we'll open the hearing. We will not close the hearing. We will keep it open, and we will publish notice of the special meeting when that hearing will be resumed. Okay.
Mayor Freeman, also the budget amendment has been removed from the agenda as well.
I'm sorry. So yes, ordinance 534, amendments to the 2022 budget, will not be heard tonight as well. That ordinance did not was not prepared in time for tonight's meeting. So that's going to be 7D. We're going to strike that. So we are going to leave item 7B, but we will remove item 7D. Do I have a motion from the council to approve the agenda as amended, or does any member of the council wish to propose other items or an alternate agenda?
I'll move approval of the agenda as amended to remove item 7D, ordinance 534.
Is there a second?
And 7B.
No, we're going to keep 7B.
We just got to open the hearing. We're just not going to conduct.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, tonight's amended agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to item number 4, our agency reports and presentations. We have Chief Soto from the Spokane Valley Fire Department here this evening. Chief, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening I'll be presenting our council presentation on our October numbers and just in general some feedback of where we're at. So next slide, please. So I want to remind everyone why we're here. Our mission is we are professionals who care for our community through emergency response and risk reduction. We've been around since 1940. We are serving about 136,000 plus people from 3 cities and unincorporated Spokane County. We are currently up with 196 personnel. So we are looking to fill some holes that we have right now just from a multitude of retirements that we've already have and more that are coming. We had 22,433 calls last year. and 82% of them were for EMS. We are running off of our 5-year strategic plan. That is our guide. That is what our stakeholders wanted, and that's the direction that we're moving. Most importantly, we're fiscally responsible. We hold no long-term debt. Next slide, please. We're often called, hey, you guys are just a fire department, so you must just go to fires, and we don't see a lot of fires, so you guys don't really do a whole lot. And that is probably the I'm overreaching and making it worse than it is. But the bottom line is we're an all-hazard agency, and most importantly, we are the only fire department in this county that offers all those items. Where EMS, structural fire, wildland fire, hazmat, technical rescue, water rescue. And water rescue goes into several: swift water, lake, ice. There's just all sorts of dive. Extrications, rescue task force, the big one, helicopter rescue, prevention, inspections, permitting, community risk reduction, and just in general fire and EMS education, not just for our older community, but for our children as well. Next slide. Our key initiatives: prevention and firefighting practices that save lives and properties, because that is our tactical objectives, is first and foremost saving lives and then property. We're nationally recognized as a community risk reduction program, and we are really good at pit crew CPR. In fact, this month's Firehouse magazine that just came out yesterday, that is actually in my office, and I want to hold it there right now just for a few minutes. It specifically talks about pit crew CPR and your fire department, Spokane Valley Fire Department, and specifically 2 of our firefighters, and that initiative that we brought to the east side of Washington and some parts of Idaho and Montana. So we're out there. Next slide, please. So for the last 5 years, I'd like to say that here's what we are. Here's what your investment has brought you, right? An investment is, hey, what money am I getting? What money am I saving? So over the last 5 years, on average per year, we have lost $1.8 million in fire damages, but we have saved on average $103 million per year from fire losses. And I think that's huge, because obviously we're not just saving businesses, but we're saving our community members from going bankrupt, going homeless, things of that nature. So it's important that we don't just get there, but we put out that fire, save that business, because we're also talking about people's livelihoods. Over the last 5 years, we've averaged almost 800 smoke alarm installs per year. Just this last week, we had a smoke alarm blitz, and so that's one of our huge community risk reduction things that we like to do, that we also have buy-in from several of our stakeholders throughout the community. And we get out there and we put them in, we change out batteries, and we educate. We've saved 11 lives from 2016 to present. And you can't put a dollar on a life. You just can't. So for us, that's very important. That's a big number, actually, 11 lives, and so we're very proud of that. Now, when it comes up, if you go back, because this is the highlight of this whole screen, right? We are 72% above the national average when it comes to saving lives from cardiac arrest. And I don't say that lightly. We're actually, if you look down to the bottom right-hand corner, we are the #1 fire department in the country for population of 100,000 people or more for saving lives from cardiac arrest. And it's not just us. Obviously, we try to be as good as we can, but we have Pulse Point out there. We get in our community. We teach community CPR. We teach our children. We teach our elderly. We teach everybody. Push hard, push fast, because you are helping to save that life. So it's community driven, and that's why it's a community award. And so we're #1. So be proud of that. The 116 lives saved there, that's huge. Initially in EMS, we used to measure things by the ROSC rate, which was return of spontaneous circulation. I have somebody that goes into cardiac arrest. I get a pulse back. We take him to the hospital, and we're like, hey, we saved another one. But what it showed, what we saw, was that very, very small amount of those people came out of the hospital. So we said, hey, we gotta look at these numbers again, because we're not really saving them. We're getting a pulse back, but that's just the medications that we're giving them. So what they came up with is cardiac arrest survival rates, and those are the people that died. We brought back pulses, we got them to the hospital, and they walked out and they live a normal life right now. Since 2014, we've had 116 of those lives. That is a lot of people, and certainly we've been recognized nationally for being the top performers, and that's something that we should all be very proud about. Next slide, please. Growth. What can I say? We're busy, and I won't stop beating that drum, because people need to understand that when you call 911 and you really don't have a true emergency, you could be impacting the person to your right or left that's having a true emergency. Since 2013, our call volume has risen by 80%. In our 2014 master plan, they suggested or estimated that we would be at just over 15,000 calls a year by 2025. We're way over that number at 62%. Right now, we're 6% ahead of last year's numbers. And then just overall, we've experienced a 9% growth over the last 3 years. So again, we are busy. Next slide, please. So for October's numbers, this month, we had a total of 1,929 incidents, and that turned into 2,347 responses. Year to date, we're at 18,979 incidents with 22,552 responses. So again, we're moving and shaking. Next slide. So this is just a visual picture. I'm a visual person. This is 2021 for the entire year. And as you can see, the more yellow, the more busy. Now, if you go to the next slide, this is 2022 through October 31st. And you can see that it's got a little bit more yellow. So again, just trying to show these are the numbers. These are the places that we go most often to. And so it really shows that our entire area is somewhat warm, but there are specific areas that are really hot. So next slide, please. So you might be thinking, well, hey, Chief, how are you going to combat that? How are we going to handle those multiple calls and things of that nature? Well, upcoming in February of next year is our M&O levy. So that's where we're going to bring up our new plan of what we're going to do and take that to our voters and let them decide if they want to maintain what we're doing and also help us to respond better, fast, and faster. Next slide. So this year, in our previous M&O, we had scheduled 3 fire engines. However, COVID hit, that set things back, and now ordering a fire truck now is you're looking at almost a 3-year wait to get a fire truck now, and that's for any business, any fire builder that you want to go through. We received our 3 new fire engines, and so we just put our new one, Engine 9, in service. And it replaced a 14-year-old frontline engine with 160,000 miles and over 13,000 engine hours. And I want you to know from the perspective of think of yourself. Over the last 14 years, how often have you just jumped out of bed and ran 100 miles an hour to your neighbor's house and then took care of business and then kind of tried to relax and walk home? These trucks are just, they're hammering down on calls. This is constant moving and shaking. And so the 2 big things I want you to know is that we have the top tier mechanics on the planet, and I'll go to battle on anybody on that. And they maintain these trucks. We take care of them like they are our own, and they are, frankly. However, what I want you to look at is that truck is 14 years old. We take our citizens' money very serious, and so we're gonna get the most bang that we can from these units before we replace them. And this one is at the end of its life and then some. So upcoming, we have 2 new engines coming in, new engine 4 and new engine 5, and obviously stay tuned on social media and you'll see us put that out. Next slide, please. And that's it. And as usual, please visit us at SpokenValley.com for any information. And I am here for any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Chief Soto? Mr. Sander?
So in the last 14 years, there's been a huge technology increase across the board. What about a new engine compared to the 14-year-old one? What are kind of, give me, what new things are there?
Oh, you're gonna love this. So these three new engines, you can't make this stuff up, it's pretty cool. So if you have Waze right now, and I'm not pushing for Waze, the app Waze for traveling. Right now, these three new engines, just to give you a little bit of what they are, what they can do, when we are out and about, we're on Waze. So especially if we go on a call, it will, if you have Waze, it will tell you, hey, fire truck is coming, they're 2 miles behind you, coming code to a call. So that you know ahead of time, it's talking to you, telling you that we're coming. So that's the kind of technology that's on these new trucks. These new trucks also get better gas mileage, and when I say that, it's diesel mileage, and by better, we're talking like, 1 or 2 miles per gallon. But really, right now, with the cost of diesel, every mile counts. They're a little bit shorter and thinner, so they have better turn radius, so we can really get into neighborhoods better. They're just these ones that we're purchasing are really the top of the line. Our citizens deserve the best, and I really want to put our firefighters on the best, most affordable, but yet best fire truck that we can get. So these are certainly top tier. The only thing I didn't like was they're from Wisconsin, and Pierce Company took them out to the Green Bay Packers Stadium to take their photo op for us. So I'd have preferred the Seahawks, but I can't fix everything. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Soto.
Thank you
We
very much.
appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
So that concludes our agency reports. That brings us to public comments received. At this time, have we had any written public comments received either by email, letter, or delivered to the city?
No, we have not.
Those comments are those comments would be if we had received them concerning meeting agenda items proposed for final action tonight. So we have no public comments received at this time. Do we have any need for an executive session this evening? No. Oh,
Nope.
Sorry. So no need for an executive session. So that brings us to our action items for this evening. Our first action item is the consent agenda for tonight, consisting of the draft council minutes for the October 2022 regular meeting, the October 22 treasurer's report, the October 2022 claims and payroll, and the final payment request, less retainage for the Frederick Avenue water line replacement for Red Diamond Construction. Would any member of the council like to take any of these items from the consent agenda separately? Seeing or hearing no motion to take any items separately, do I hear a motion on the consent agenda as presented this evening?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, tonight's consent agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you. So that will bring us to item 7B, a public hearing for the 2023 preliminary budget. I will open the public hearing tonight, and we will continue this item to our next meeting, which will be a special meeting to be set at item number 13. So we will just continue this item over, but it is open. That brings us to item 7C, ordinance 533, the closure of the street fund. You want me to take that, or you want to take that? Why don't you take it?
So, for those of you that have been on the council for a while, you recall in the past, we've closed some funds that the city's maintained in the past when they're not needed. when the need, or, debt service funds, things like that, when the need is no longer present. The city has maintained a street special revenue fund. We actually couldn't pinpoint when that was created. It was a long time ago. And we believe it was created in accordance with an old statute that was repealed back in 2013, which was per the statute, it was the sole source upon which you could receive certain state funding. What was the funding that we were receiving?
It was the motor vehicle fuel tax funding, the MVFT.
And you recall, 2013 through 2015, the legislature did a fair amount of modifications to the motor vehicle fuel tax. That statutory requirement went away. We maintained that fund and largely used it to pay for transportation, construction, maintenance, road projects in the city. You'll also recall in years past when we've adopted the budget, the city has taken a loan from the general fund to otherwise fund the street fund. The need for that fund no longer exists. To the extent we receive motor vehicle fuel tax, it's de minimis at most. And so what we're asking the council through Ordinance 533 to do is a couple things. One, repay the loan from the general fund that was made to the street special revenue fund. It sounds like a big deal, but basically it's the money that would have been in your general fund anyway, absent the loan years ago. Pay off that loan, and then close the special revenue fund and transfer any and all funds to the general fund, which will allow you more flexibility in going forward in terms of budgeting and paying for construction and maintenance, transportation, roadway projects. Fair summary?
Yeah, the only other item is that it has come to light from our last audit that funds, particularly special revenue funds that receive less than 20% of their revenue from a special dedicated source, i.e. the MVFT, they would like you, the state auditor would like you to do away with those special revenue funds and close them. Special revenue funds create a special tracking requirement when we're going through the audit, and basically there has been a push from the state auditor's office to streamline as many of our funds as possible, and if you do not need a fund, you should not have the fund. We, on average, receive about 7 to 8% of the special revenue fund from the dedicated revenue source, the MVFT. It does not change our ability to get those funds. We still get those funds, but as Brian said, the statutory requirement is no longer there, and so to bring ourselves in with the auditing guidance and basically make our life easier, closing the special revenue fund for street is the most appropriate thing to do. Are there any questions for Brian or myself? Debbie could have chimed in on that as well. It would make her life a lot easier with tracking for audits, and it gets rid of one fund. We will have an account, a street account within the general fund. Any other questions? Mr. Stravens, any questions?
No.
So at this time, do I have a motion from the council on ordinance 533?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 533, the closure of the special street fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion by the council? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, ordinance 533 is presented unanimously. Thank you. As we amended the agenda for tonight, we will not be considering ordinance 534 at this time. So that brings us to resolution 2022-11, the property tax levy. Our treasurer would typically take that, but I will go back and I will chime in on that one and say that, let's see, sorry, hang on one second, I need to keep my items. That we did have a We did have our public hearing on the resolution for taking our 1% property tax increase, and then at this time, we are, let's see, I'll go through this. Our levy amount from the previous year was 449 and change, 449,441.55. And therefore, the actual levy amount previous year shall increase $8,988.48, which is a 2% increase from the previous year. We will only be able to take the 1%. We are setting it as 2% in the revenue in the resolution in order to capture any last quarter trailing income that might come in or assessments from the county, because the county always lags, but we are capped, as always, at a 1% increase. Did I hit that right after all these years?
You did well. The only thing I was gonna say is if you think you're seeing two of these resolutions in your packet, you are. Keep in mind that Resolution 2022-11 is meant to achieve a certain statutory purpose under the taxation statutes, RCW 8455, while 2022-12, the ad valorem tax, achieves the purposes of RCW 35, Cap A 33-135. In order for you to carry out your property tax purposes, the county requires that you submit two separate resolutions to achieve two separate statutory purposes. So hopefully I preface the next resolution and Kevin doesn't have to repeat himself again.
So, just to be clear, we are not raising taxes 4% or even 2%. It is the same resolution over and over again. Are there any questions for Mr. Wurst or myself on Resolution 2022-11?
Yes. I want to know why this wasn't in our newsletter so that we could be here and discuss this last month.
We had a public hearing last month. It was posted on the website, and we are not taking public comment at this time.
I realize that. We've gone through COVID. There have been some changes. The last time I was here, I was allowed 2 minutes.
And
And you've taken that away. But you still want to take my money. Our taxes, our property values went up over 40% this year. Tell me how that doesn't affect you and put more money in your pocket.
We're limited by law to a 1% limitation. If the city could take the 40%, I don't know if it would, but all it can do by statute is 1%. Ma'am, I'm gonna call point order right here. The city has adopted a public comment portion of its meeting in accordance with the OPMA. The council has the opportunity, if it wants to take comments. It held a public hearing, it was noticed, there were no public comments at the hearing.
So I'll address a couple things. The council is always welcome to revise our guidance for public comments if we wish. What I will say is we did have a public hearing on this last month. We have our ability to, we only publish our newsletter quarterly. We have our ability to post to our website. We have our ability to post to our reader boards, the agendas, everything that's going to be out there is out there. What I will also say is we are not taking more money other than $8,000 from every entity in the city. We are taking our 1%. This is not any huge amount of money from property tax that the city of Millwood gets. We don't get a lot. We get about 1.62% per thousand of the property taxes. Our costs have gone up for administering your costs, living in the city. Everything has gone up. De-icer's gone up, road maintenance has gone up, electricity's gone up, everything. We use this money not to do anything fancy other than to basically keep the lights on and keep providing service.
And yet I see that your audiovisual is going to be updated and there's a bunch of things that you want to do with the park.
They're great. There's a lot of things we want to do for the park. Whether those come to fruition or not depends on if we get funding. And there's no.
The rest of us are tightening our belts too. I put a half a tank of oil in my house last week It cost me close to $700 for half a tank.
Ma'am, we all have the same burden. And what I will say is this, the council has heard this. We had a public hearing on it last month. There's, the option for debate is not, there. If they choose to not take this, they can choose not to take it. But then we run behind. We have a budget. We have a city we have to run. We tighten our budget. The AV stuff that I'm doing is, or the city is doing, has to do with the money that we receive from COVID, from the American Public Rescue Act that we put into the general fund, that at some point we are going to have to upgrade these facilities because they will change the ability for people to participate in these meetings. If we don't do it now, it costs more later on. We're going to have to do it. So rather than spend $75,000 or $80,000 when the legislature tells us we have to do it, we're going to spend $50,000 to do it now so we're ready when that happens. We have mandates that come down on us here in the city, all of us, and we try to get ahead of these things economically. So we're not spending money just because we need a fancy television. We have to have the ability for people to participate. And at some point, people will be able to participate remotely. And the city of Millwood needs to be ready to do that. I don't know what other local small jurisdictions are going to do, but we're going to have to be ready to do that. So,
And yet you tell me I've come down here in person with all of you, and I have no voice
And-
because I didn't put it in writing.
and have we not heard, have I gavelled you?
You have.
I have gavelled you?
No. You have not, no. But if there were a few more people here, there wouldn't be time for everybody.
And-
You would have shut it down and been done.
And here's the thing, I had a public hearing last month.
We used to get a newsletter monthly with our water bill. We don't get that anymore.
And so the problem with that is that newsletter every month costs money.
It comes out with the newsletter.
I have to pay to print that. I have to pay to print that. That takes up costs too. If we're talking about tightening our belt, I would ask you this as the mayor. Do you have access to the internet?
I do.
So I would say that we try to streamline as much of our stuff electronically in real time. And so for individuals that don't have access to the internet, I fully understand that that might be a burden, that we're not giving that monthly newsletter all the time. But we try and put as much stuff out there as economically as possible in real time for folks to see this. I would say that from sitting here for 18 years, much like yourself, the only time people come or pay attention is when they are angry about something. I appreciate that. I really do. I can't make people in the city pay attention to things. I try to put as much out there. We as the city try to put as much out there for people to be aware of what we're doing. We really do. We don't try and work in a vacuum. It's Millwood. But I can't make people pay attention.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Sander.
I think it's important to remember that our budget is broken up in different revenue streams. And as you mentioned, through the COVID and the infrastructure bills, we have received additional dollars, but they have a window and they have restrictions.
I can't use those COVID dollars to pay for the street.
I understand that. That's, I'm saying we need to remember that some of the dollars we have come with limitations on what we could use it for. And our general fund, even our general fund has some limitations on what we can use it for. And I think, Brian, in the past, we've talked about this 1%. If we don't do it, it goes to the county.
Well, it could get divvied up amongst various taxing districts. The county might be one of them, library
Oh.
districts, others. But if you do not take your 1%, you are then capped at whatever the lowest was over the previous 3 years. So as inflation goes up, whatever cost of living adjustments are, depending on which factor you're looking at, 3 to 8%, somewhere in there, your 1% is still stagnant behind the cost of living adjustments for you to keep up. If you don't take it, you're stagnating even further.
Well, and I think to Mr. Sanders' question, the other thing is, everybody in here is taxed by the county. Your property tax went up. They send you a bill.
Oh, yeah.
If the city of Millwood doesn't take 1%, it doesn't reduce your property tax bill. It just gets divvied up amongst other people. So,
Serious?
yes,
That's what this is.
yes. So we take what we can take for us here. And I know that sounds really kind of greedy and that we're taking, but you live in Millwood. By statute, we have the ability to take 1% of the tax that you've been charged, that we've all been charged here, all of us. And so if we don't take that 1%, somebody else gets it. They don't give you money back. Your assessment is your assessment. If I don't take that I've been doing this way too long. If we don't take this 1%, it goes somewhere else.
Mayor,
Yes.
Debbie did a presentation not too long ago of where your tax dollars go for when you get assessed those
Oh,
taxes.
yeah, I've got the pie
The
chart.
pie chart. And you look at that and you can see that, Millwood is what runs your city, has the very smallest piece of that pie.
Shows 11%.
Now, if you look at everything, you look at the school, you look at the fire, the libraries, they all take in more than the city does. It's amazing that we can actually run the city on the amount that we take in off the property taxes.
I understand your frustration. I really do. I get the same, I get a tax bill too. I don't, but
Yeah. When your property taxes go up over, or your property valuation goes up over 40% in 1 year, and then you hear somebody saying, we want more taxes. Are you kidding me? Because they're getting a bigger pie already. But apparently, if you don't take it, someone else is gonna have their hand out, and they're gonna suck it up.
It is true.
that is true.
Thank you very much for the
Yep.
clarification.
I
Appreciate that.
I apologize, and I hope, I really am trying to be respectful of you coming down. You have actually made an effort to come down here. Thank you. But we are what we are, and we have a city to run.
And it makes sense. I mean, if somebody's gonna get it, I just as soon see it stay at home.
And that's the way your legislators feel about it too.
Yeah, amen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And really do appreciate you showing up. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So, all that said, which is fitting on election night, I would say, do I have I had a motion and a second. We were at discussion, correct? Oh, didn't have a motion. Is there a motion on Resolution 2022-11 as presented?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-11 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from the council? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, Resolution 2022-11 is approved by the council with a quorum +1 by 4 votes. Thank you. And so that brings us to 2022-12, which is the mirror resolution for 2022-11. I would hope that this has been fully explained. So I would look for a motion on Resolution 2022-12 as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-12 as presented.
Mr. Stravens makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second, oh, Dan.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion by the council? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, Resolution 2022-12 is approved with a quorum plus one. Thank you very much. So that brings us to item number 7G, which is our council chambers audio and visual upgrades. So we had initially discussed, you have a proposal in front of you from Avadex. The proposal is covered under the special provisions of the, is it Department of Commerce for bidding purposes for technologies? So we did not have to have 3 responsive bidders because we can go through we can go to the most qualified bidder, and Avadex is honestly the only one left in town. You will see in here that as we had discussed, our audio system in the council chambers is causing us issues with telecommunication, conference calling, Zoom meetings, things like that. And so initially we had budgeted $30,000 when we began to look at the visual components as well, because we will need a camera that when the council does return to allowing public comment for meetings on the, on agenda items, so in-person hearing comments, we will need to be able to show the speaker, we will need to be able to show individual council members. There will be some higher level of standards of what we need for visual presentation for ADA and hard of hearing, all that. So the new proposal comes in at 152. No, 252. Don't get all, where was it? 52,967.39. That includes both audio and visual upgrades. That will bring us to a system that not only should work for the next 10 to 15 years, but part of the investment is a software expandable hardware system, so we should not have to ever build the backbone for it again. Because really where we're at is this thing has been put together in 3 or 4 different stages, and I am not an IT person, and if you are relying on me to be your IT professional, you're not really getting your bang for your buck. But this will bring us to a standard that would meet any Open Public Meeting Act requirements now or on a horizon. What it would really allow us to do is it would allow us to have the ability for at-home or off-site participants as currently required by the OPMA, where they could be both seen and heard. We would be able to actually have stream so somebody could be visually seen who is wishes to be seen. But right now, even with the audio, we still have problems because Mr. Stravens could probably not hear any of this public discussion because we're only keyed in on the mics, all that stuff. The other thing I will tell you folks is that this proposal gets rid of these table mics. So I no longer have to worry about you not turning on your microphones. So are there questions on the Avadex proposal? This is covered under our American ARPA dollars, and we have that in the budget and have set that aside.
And Avadex did City of Spokane's?
Yeah. Avadex did City of Spokane's. They also did the upgrades for the Valley's Chambers, and I think they're doing Cheney's right now.
And we can get rid of that?
That all goes away. Everything, all that goes away. I don't have to do anything. She gets, it's no longer she has a touchpad, and she would just be able to push different things. And so it keeps us from having to have somebody who actually can professionally run a live distribution, because right now all we have is the one camera to YouTube. It would allow us to stream these meetings live, and she would be able to control it without having to have a master's in electrical engineering. So,
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
yes, sir.
So when we look at the bid here, the equipment and software totals $23,000. Technical services total $30,000, $29,000. So I would hope that the new system warranty, do we know what that warranty entails? Is it a 5-year warranty? If we're beginning to start a meeting at 5:45 and we have an issue, do we have someone that's going to help us online? How's that going to work? That seems expensive for technical services.
So the new system
In my
warranty,
mind.
so the new system warranty is on page 14. They get responded to, you can see that there on page 14. I don't, Mr. Stravens, if you want to look through that real quick, we can. I don't necessarily want me to read through everything.
It seems like a lot of that could be addressed by testing the system before the meetings after hours.
Yeah, no, this thing will be fully debugged. That's the other thing is that they're gonna basically go through and pull everything down and put everything back together the way it's supposed to go. They will test it. They will also test not only and debug not only our internal systems, but they will test and debug our connection to our internet. And they will test and debug our connections to our streaming platforms. So if we want to do multiple platforms, such as if we want to have Twitch, if we want to have a different platform other than YouTube, if we want to do a Facebook live stream, we will be able to multi-stream platforms, and they will set all that up for us. It's a lot. So I don't know if that answered your question, Kelly. We've worked with Avidex before. We've gotten really good service from them. They do quality work, and then they often, we go through a few dry runs with it. Once it's up and running, stuff pretty much holds together. The idea is not to have me running around 10 minutes before the meeting trying to get the TVs to work anymore.
So I understand, Mr. Mayor. So, I'm in the business of negotiation. So, yeah, I'm looking at the warranty. It's a 1-year warranty, and they'll respond to requests for assistance due to client report issues from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So as long as we have someone that's well-versed in the system, but it seems like the technical service, the $29,000, from a standpoint of common sense, that seems expensive to me. When your equipment's $23,000 and you have a 1-year warranty for $29,000, perhaps it's just me, but that seems expensive. Perhaps I'm not well versed in video equipment, but that's my take. As long as we have someone well versed in the equipment and understands the troubleshooting, it sounds like because our meetings are after 5 p.m., we're going to have limited assistance if something comes up right before a meeting.
No, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Stravens, and thank you for that. What I would say is that this proposal is as it says on the lead page, is reference to Avidex's State of Washington master contract. So these rates have been negotiated with the State of Washington. We're using them off the off their services roster. So the city's not negotiating these rates. The state has negotiated these rates costs, costs for labor, all that sort of stuff. Now, this is not a lump sum. It's a project, it's per project. So we will monitor their hours. We will see what's going on.
I understand.
Any other questions from the council? So, I would look to the council for, a motion or direction to the city or staff as to what you want to do with this proposal.
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to accept the proposal and with a budget of not to exceed $52,967.39.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I will say it looks expensive, but there is probably an immense amount of work to integrate all of those different systems.
Well, I can tell you that none of this will be here. It will all be downstairs. So it's all gonna get basically, we have to start from scratch. We get to keep the well,
Maybe.
we get to keep 2 TVs, and we get to keep the speakers. Everything else, we've put this together. This is Frankenstein's monster. And, I just want to say we've done the best we can for where we're at. But the idea of a future where we're going to have to be able to live stream stuff, take responses from people at home, be able to do that in real time, and queue people up and switch and make this look like a thing and make people happy.
And keep a record of it.
Keep a record of it, and that, and accommodate individuals that can't be here in person. And that accommodation of the individuals in that statute of the OPMA is very loosely written. There's nothing in that says, if you're somewhere else and you want to be at this meeting, we have to accommodate you. That's everywhere in Washington. So we have a motion and a second.
My comment would be, Mayor, that although it does appear to be expensive, I agree with Sean, and I think that the accommodation of the citizens of Millwood is important. So I think I'd like to put down the record.
Yeah, and I would say when we discussed this initially, it was strictly the audio portion, but integrating the video at the same time actually saves money in the long term because we actually are able to use that camera plus another 2 cameras plus the software integration that will allow her to switch with the cameras and all that stuff without having a giant keyboard and control panel somewhere. Because at that point, then we have to start thinking about hiring somebody who would be technically savvy enough to run the thing. If we don't make it not complicated. All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Sorry, Kelly, I didn't mean to put you on the spot by waiting so long. If there's any opposed, please signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the resolution is approved unanimously, or the contract is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. That concludes our action items for this evening. That brings us to our reports. Public Works, do you have a report this evening?
Do have a report. So we started out with a really great October. By the time we got to November, it wasn't so great. So like I said, October was great. We had good weather. We were able to get a lot of things accomplished in the city. Then about a week or so ago, as you all know, we ended up with a E. coli event. So we did our routine sample at the beginning of the month, and that test came back as positive for E. coli. We did
No, I was just gonna say one.
Yes, yeah, so there was just one sample test positive for E. coli. We went back and we'd resample at the same place and then do some other random samples throughout the area, upstream and downstream. They came back as total coliform, which is what we would expect from blowouts. And so anyway, because it did test positive for total coliform and not E. coli, according to the regulations from Department of Health, we had to classify it the same as a E. coli confirmed event. And so that was what the requirement was to order the boiled water order. So we immediately went into our emergency mode and started disinfection. We worked closely with Department of Health on that to try to figure out what the issue was. We did a survey. We went out and did our own survey before that, once we had found that there was, or it was confirmed that there was an E. coli event. We didn't find anything that was obvious through our inspection. Like I said, we went through, did another inspection with Department of Health. They went over our procedures. We didn't have any findings on what our procedures were. So we would get a letter from Department of Health, you know, from the inspection report, and we'll wait for that to come. But like I said, there was no findings that they could find during the inspection. So the guys were really busy this weekend, and I just want to kudos to the whole team of Millwood for stepping up. The last time we went through this was 20 years ago, and we had an event at the water tower, and that was confirmed, but that we knew what that was when we did the testing. You know, it was isolated to that one area. This one, you know, we went through the whole process of, like I said, the disinfection. So we had to hook up the chlorinator. We also had to get notification out within 24 hours. So the office staff worked diligently to put together the notification. They got them all ready to print. It's also on the same day that they were trying to get the council packets and everything going for you guys. So it was tough, but they did an awesome job of putting that together. The staff went out and distributed the notifications. We also put up notices in different locations on our notice boards. It was raining that day. It was nasty. We were trying to put these letters out, try to keep them dry and tape them to the door so they would stick. Make sure that everybody got notified, and we did. We hit every door with a notification. I was actually surprised we were able to do that. But halfway through that, I was wondering if we were actually going to be able to notify everybody in a timely manner. So what I did was, we had been to a seminar with when Liberty Lake went through their process. And one of the things that they had recommended, didn't evolve until after they had had their event, was the reverse 911 call. And so I got a hold of Simone at Spokane County Department of Emergency Management. Talked to her. It was on a recommendation from one of the other water districts that we contact them to help get the notification out. So contact her, gave her our notification. Her and I went over email and a phone conversation, decided what the message would be, because they're limited to so many characters. We came up with a message. We sent it out. So it went out as a phone call to landlines, but there's also the cellular option. So we did the cellular option as well. It came across as a text message, which you probably all received. You and a whole bunch of other people received that text thing. So the one lesson I learned from this was that they sent it to the closest cell tower in Millwood. She said she would be able to target the area. I was assuming that it would be just the Millwood area, maybe a little bit surrounding, not realizing how the process worked. And so we have over 30,000 cars a day going through Argonne. none of those cars usually belong to Millwood residents. You know, the percentage is very, very low. So every time somebody went through, they got pinged with that message. I was under the understanding we were going to go out and put a blast out. We'd be able to get notification out quick. We'd be able to answer the phone calls, take care of the Millwood citizens, and still be getting the distribution out there. What happened was it pinged and it stayed on there, and so anytime anybody came or went through Millwood, they received a call or the text message. And it continued to do that for about 3 to 4 hours. And so I called Simone back and said, hey, because we started getting the phone calls, I came into the office to help Christina and Lisa on the phones. And people kept saying, well, I just received this message. And the message had gone out at 1:30, and we were still getting these at 4 or 5 o'clock. But I think it was around 3:30 or 4 when we decided to ask, you know, did you really just get this message? Or did you get the message and you're just now calling? No, my phone just went off. I said, oh, I got to call Simone because we got to stop this because we've already, we can't handle all these phone calls. I mean, we could not pick up the phone fast enough with 3 of us to answer all of them. And like I said, 99% of the phone calls that we got were not even from this area. We got them as far as Loon Lake. One, actually we know of, went to Twin Falls, Idaho. Yeah, it was just amazing. So
The
anyway,
other thing that we learned too is that, wow. Everybody thinks they live in Millwood. So, yeah, everyone in the valley thinks they live in Millwood.
right. So, needless to say, word got out very quickly that there was an incident in Millwood. And so the press got a hold of it, and which is fine. I mean, we weren't trying to hide anything. We were just trying to keep it a little bit more localized because that's the people that it affected. So lesson learned, we will not in the future put the phone number on the text message that goes out because we don't have any control and people don't know where they live, like Christina said. Everybody wants to live in Millwood because Millwood's a nice place. But so the lesson we learned from this was that we would, next time, give them our web address, and they would be able to go online, actually go to our web page. We would have notification on there. It has a map that shows exactly where Millwood is, so people can decide for themselves whether this is affecting them or not. And there'd be a phone number that they could contact them. I think that would have eliminated all but about 5 phone calls. Because that's about how many Millwood citizens we got, because we were able to, like I said, get the notifications out onto the doors of the people. This was just another layer of making sure that the word got out, just for the health and safety of our citizens. So, anyway, long story short, or long story long, but anyway, it was not a great incident to have to go through, but it was a great training opportunity for our staff to go through an emergency process. After this is all over, we're going to have a little debrief and talk about, you know, how we handled things, how we can change things up a little bit, like this reverse 911 call. We know how to handle this a little bit better this next time. But again, I have to give kudos to the staff. They did excellent job of, you know, staying late and answering all those phone calls, because this all happened on a Friday before a weekend, and so we're trying to get the word out to everybody so that they would know. Citizens have been awesome. They've all been understanding. We haven't had anybody that was really irate or, you know, everybody understands, you know, this was not something that Millwood did to try to poison them. You know, we're working for them to keep them safe, and, you know, taking the extra steps of precaution by doing the disinfection and the flushing. Back to where I left off, we went out and we chlorinated the system on Friday, started it. Continued on Saturday and flushed to get it out into the system. The guys were out here all day Saturday, doing the same thing, getting out to the far ends. As soon as we got a residual, we moved out. We did it in a systematic progression, started closest to the well and worked our way out. We figured that was the best way to get the water out. And that seemed to work. We were able to get it out within 8 hours into the far reaches of the city. We had to let it sit for 24 hours before we could start taking the chlorine out, because we have to have all the chlorine out now in order to take our samples to verify that, you know, it's in the same condition it was when we received the contamination. So we spent the next all day Monday. We let it sit on Sunday, but we were filling the reservoir with so we could disinfect the reservoir as well. Then we pumped out of the reservoir to get it down to a lower level so we could have fresh water back into it as well. So we had to do a lot of flushing on Monday to get all that chlorine back out of the system. So we got it down to a non-detect level. And this morning we went out and we checked all of our sampling sites. We have to have random samples throughout the system. We have sampling sites that are set up for that purpose. They're attached to the meters with the sampling site. We have a special sampling rod that we use for that. So the guys are very meticulous when they do their samples. So we know it wasn't a operator error on that. So whatever results we get tomorrow, we're satisfied. You know, we did everything that we could to disinfect the system and get us back to normal. But we'll have to have 2 sets of samples without E. coli or total coliform. You know, so we should know by tomorrow morning, hopefully by about 10 o'clock for the first set. We'll grab another set and take them to the lab, and we should have the results 24 hours later. So if both of those come back satisfactory, then we'll be able to lift the boil water order on Thursday. And so we'll do the same. Well, we'll do a notification to the residents on this. Probably not going to do a door-to-door, but we will do the blast. There will be no number attached to it. It'll just say a very brief, the order has been lifted for the city of Millwood. If they have any questions, we'll have the website address on there. We'll post it on there as well. And I'm sure it'll reach out to the media, or we can reach out to the news stations as well and let them know that the water is good to drink again, or not. If we end up having to continue this for some reason, I don't foresee that happening, but if for some reason that we have to continue this boil water order, we will give them an update on that as well. What you have to do if we have to re-disinfect the system and start over again. So I'm hoping that that's not the case. So that was just over this last week. But like I said previously, the guys were out taking care of a bunch of other things. So we started to do leaves. We did 1 load. And then this incident happened, and then the weather didn't cooperate, and we ended up getting snowed on. And so it's supposed to stay this way for the next week. We did strip 1 truck back down and got it ready, or put the de-icer on it and plow, so it's ready to go. We actually did de-icing last night. So we flushed all day, and then we de-iced all night. And that was the other thing that we had when we were doing our flushing. We knew we were going to have temperatures that were going to be, freezing, but we had to dump, almost 1 million gallons of water out of the system. We had 12 miles of water line that we had to get chlorine out of. So we flushed, but we had to do it in locations where we knew the water, where it could take the water without flooding out homes and everything else. So fortunately we were able to do that. So. Anyway, that is pretty much my report. Did I miss a couple of things? I'm sure I have, but
No, that's quite all right. Do you want to give an idea of, based on the weather, what you think leaf pickup might look like this year?
so we went a week later just because we did have a very
The leaves.
beautiful October, and which kept the leaves on the trees a lot longer. In fact, there's still a lot of them that are still green, even with the windstorms, the cold weather, the rain. Some of them are still hanging on to them. Typically what we do is we hold off until the week before Thanksgiving, which this year will be November 21st. Monday would have been the last day that we would do pickup. It still may be. Hopefully we can get back out there as soon as the snow melts off here a little bit. It's supposed to have some warmer temperatures in about a week. We have unseasonably cold temperatures now. So we will try to get as many of the leaves as we can picked up, but I mean, people haven't even ranked out there because there wasn't anything down, and now it's snowed. So once it melts off, I anticipate that we will get more leaves to pick up. We'll go for as long as we can, but we have to do what is the priority, and the priority is to keep the streets safe. So if it becomes a snow event, which could be this year, then the leaf program, we'll do what we can, but we can't guarantee that we'll do anything after the 21st of November.
Any other questions for Paul? Mr. Sander?
Well, I can appreciate the work that all the city staff did, and it's not unusual for people throughout the county to think it's their water. With my experience, people just call it everywhere. But the important thing is getting the notice out, because even if they don't live here, they may have been stopping at the grocery store or at the, drinking water on the way through town. So it's, it seems kind of ridiculous. It is important to get that notice out, because it is a serious item. Let's see, the other thing about, in addition to the survey, the Department of Health has a pretty thorough assessment that they go through at the same time. They do the survey, the inspection, but they also have the question and answer assessment.
Right.
And that really goes into, the sampler, the sampling technique, was it a new sampler, a new person, or whatever. I mean, it goes through a lot, and any other events happening. So it's a comprehensive review, and from my experience at the Department of Health, it's a frantic time there also. I remember before I retired there, I didn't know there's that many radio stations in town, because they all called. So, again, I appreciate all your efforts.
Yeah, we had I had numerous calls from all the local water purveyors. So City of Spokane was one of the first ones to call and say, hey, you guys need anything, just let us know. You need manpower, you need equipment, whatever. Liberty Lake, same thing. Water District 3, Irvin, Model. I mean, there's 17 different water districts in the Spokane area, and that's one thing about building a relationship and attending those meetings. It's important that we network, and by doing that, I mean, there's a lot of resources that become available to you if something like this happens. We really got saved last time, because last time it happened in 2020 or 2002. It was just Cleve and I. This year we were fortunate to have the size staff that we had. We were able to handle the situation, but we knew that if we couldn't, that we had resources that we could fall back on. And I hope that the city council would understand that if another water district was to have a similar circumstance, that Millwood would offer up our services to them as well. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Paul. That brings us to our treasurer's report. Our treasurer is, as we said, not here this evening.
Mayor, actually.
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
I had
Kelly.
a question. All right, thank you. So, Paul, I'd like to commend you and the Public Works. I thought you did an excellent job. In terms of our requirement of having backflow preventers and enforcing that, do you think we're on the right track for the next 3 years or 2 years to prevent things like this? Is there anything else we need to look at or to think about as a council to make sure this doesn't happen? Or maybe not doesn't happen, but prevents a likelihood in the future?
So Kelly, that was going to be in my mayor's report. We will be bringing some things to the council, and I'll talk about that quickly, but we're going to be looking at some of our cross-connection things, and I know that you know from being in planning, this happens pretty much regularly every October. We don't always get an E. coli hit. We don't always get an E. coli positive, but we definitely, pretty much every October, we get a coliform hit. And we have two things. We have gotten almost 100% compliance with backflow, but it has been a while since we have done the cross-connection control inspections, and we have two things we need to do. We need to go out and we need to inspect. The other is that for whatever reason in Millwood, and I'm not sure how it goes with other areas, but I can say this, when my in-ground system was installed, I had the same issue. We have installers that tend to put that blowout port on the upstream side of that backflow preventer, which absolutely defeats what the backflow preventer was intended to do. The other issue we have is couple that in the backflow, the blowout is on the wrong side of the backflow preventer. Couple that with the fact that we have untrained, for the most part, guys doing blowouts, running around with a tow behind Solaire, that we have about how many PSI in our system, Paul?
Anywhere from 65 to 75, 80 pounds pressure.
So all it takes is one guy with one of those tow behinds putting 130, 140 PSI watching Old Faithful stream out of the ground, and he's blowing just as much pressure back into our system. He can easily overcome any of these old ball valves or gate valves, anything like that. And they don't disinfect. They don't have any control requirements for their hoses or what they're doing. And so we're going to be looking at maybe making some changes to our cross-connection control, which would actually include as part of the cross-connection backflow inspection report that you need to get your blowout valve on the right side of your backflow preventer. And so that's something that I've gotten Mr. Worst tasked with. He'll be working with Paul, and we will have some proposed changes to the city code that that will strengthen that requirement for, the whole system. We always have a few diehards every year that just don't really see what the point of doing their backflow prevention device is. This is why. This is exactly why. But we're going to have to take the next step, particularly when it seems like we've got guys that are just running around town when blowout time comes, and they're basically trying to put as much air into that system to get it blown out so they can move on to the next one. And if their blowout port is not on the right side of the backflow preventer, we get stuff like this. And we get it every year. We get it every year at this time. We're always turning on the chlorinator. I think when everything was locked down, that was the only year that we have not had that.
Yeah, I don't know if we had one last year or not, but yeah, we've got a history of that happening in our records. And we talked to Department of Health when we were doing our special purpose investigation, and we were not the only ones to have this in this area. We were the only ones to have a repeat coliform caused the oil water act, but, anyway, so we mentioned that to them as well. I don't know if Department of Health is going to move forward with this, but there really should be some type of regulations for the guys that are doing the blowouts to follow. Because all the purveyors have to have regulations, and the testers all have to be certified, but the people that are doing the blowouts don't have to have any certification or anything. Education, nothing.
I agree with Paul, but I would urge the city that this is not something that we want to take on as being the first jurisdiction to certify a blowout. But one of the other things too for our system, and I don't want to dwell in the engineering, is that because we have such a small system, we have some other nuances with our system with the way the water actually moves through our standpipe and things like that Paul explained to me that I wasn't aware of, that because we do pressure equalization, we have the opportunity to move stuff through our system very quickly. And it's not always force out from the pumps to the standpipe. It kind of moves around. I would urge you to talk to Paul if you're more interested in that. But we have to come to we have to be a little more diligent in our backflow prevention than maybe other jurisdictions that are directly well-fed that don't have standpipes. Maybe they're just booster stations or things like that, because we have that issue of, we had to drain the standpipe out, didn't we?
Yeah, we had to drain the standpipe down, because everything recirculates through, and so any excess flows that we have for the pressure, it just opens up. That's how we feed the water tower. Well, we use the water tower, like I said, as an equalization.
So if we have to do something like this, we have to do it to a lot more water than what maybe Orchard Avenue would have to do or something like that. So that's why city will work to bring forth to council some ideas that we might have to strengthen some things. But I think one of the things that we can sincerely look at is really getting folks to get that blowout on the right side of on their backflow device. So.
And our current schedule is, how are we, we're looking at backflow prevention, so we're doing inspections as a city, is that correct? And we're doing it over a period of years?
Our city requires a backflow protection device inspection every year. But one of the things that we haven't done is we haven't gone out and verified some of the things from the backflow prevention reports that we've gotten, like downstream, upstream, stuff like that. And it's been a while since we've really done a cross-connection control system inspection. So we should probably look at doing that, actually having people go out and put us, as opposed to just the backflow inspectors, actually put eyes on the systems, because we don't know if somebody maybe engineered their own or anything like that.
No, most of the backflow inspection or inspectors or testers, I guess, they're certified BATs, backflow assembly testers. So they've gone through the classes and certifications. They have to recertify every year. Their equipment has to be recertified every year. And the majority of them are pretty good about filling out the form that we have, and it says, whether they've got a blowout, and if it's, or if they see anything, a lot of times they'll make comments and send them back into us. But those are the ones that we need to follow up on now that we've got those. We've got the database over the last couple of years. We're a little lenient during the COVID times as far as having
Backflow inspections.
Yeah, the inspections. We couldn't, or didn't feel it was appropriate to shut people off for not having the inspections at that time. So, but we are able to get back onto that this summer, do the field inspections. And those are the things that we're going to be targeting this time. Last time we did it, we were just trying to make sure that we had devices for all of the places where we saw that there was potential for contamination, whether it was sprinkler systems or boilers or car washes, that type of thing, just doing the surveys. Biggest thing then was just making sure that everybody had a device and then relying on the testers to give us the information that we needed. So that was the time that we were building the database. So we've got a very good database, and Lisa's excellent at keeping that up and communicating with the testers. So we've got the information, so it'll make it easier for us when we do go out and do the surveys.
Very good. And then, Paul, my last question is, I imagine, are we using the city park when we have to flush the system? Is that one of our places where we dump?
That's where we dump the Tyler. Yeah.
And so have we, as part of our new park plan, have we notified, I guess this is Christine, have we notified the architect for the park that that's also part of what the park does, and to make sure that that design plan takes that into account?
No, I did not notify him of that, but I will.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then, Paul, last question is, do we ever do we flush into the river at all with that chlorination, or is it just,
No.
yeah, it's primarily the park then?
No, we would never dump into the river, so,
Okay.
no.
Unpermitted.
It's not permitted. We don't have a permit to dump anything into the river, so no, we don't do that.
Okay.
Everything goes up
Okay.
to the ground.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. And I do appreciate, I think the city did an excellent job. I think staff did an excellent job. I think the news misreported a little bit. They acted like we delayed 24 hours. Maybe when we talk to the news, let them know that we're doing everything humanly possible, and so people don't think that there was any sort of delay, that you guys got notice out as quick as humanly possible. So I think that would be important to let the news stations know that as well.
Yeah, well, Kelly, the way that works is we do our routine tests. We have to wait 24 hours for the sample to come back. Once it comes back, then we have to confirm that, make sure it wasn't a sampling error by handling. So that's why we do the confirmation and the upstream, downstream to verify that that's what it is. That's why it takes a little bit longer. Once it's verified, though, we were out there with notification right away. So I
Yeah, I understand that.
There is a little bit of time there, but we're not doing it to hide anything. We're doing it for confirmation.
Yeah, and maybe when we talk to news stations, just let them know that, yeah, it went out within hours of verification, but, as quick as humanly possible. So it doesn't sound like we're sitting on our hands waiting or anything like that. But yeah, I thought you guys did an excellent job. Staff did an excellent job. Lisa, Christina, everyone, I thought did an excellent job. And the guys posted on the doors, that was great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so any last trailing questions for Paul? All right, thank you all. So I will move on to the treasurer. We do not have a treasurer's report because we do not have a treasurer this evening. We hope she is feeling better soon. We will need to set the special meeting. We will have the budget letter, all that sort of stuff at that time. We're still waiting for numbers, et cetera, all that good stuff. There are some things that need to be changed. That brings us to 8C, our city clerk, our planning, and our code enforcement.
I'll be quick. I don't have anything interesting to report from code enforcement. The complaints have leveled off as they normally do this time of year, so nothing to report there. For the planning department, I just want to let you know that we did not receive any applications for comp plan amendments this year, so we will not be having to go through that process this year. The Planning Commission is starting their work on the park plan. They did request some additional research more further reaching surveys, which we did with the Survey Monkey. I think I sent that hopefully to your city emails, just to get a little broader swath of information there. So they will be looking at those results at their next meeting. With no comp plan amendments this year, they'll be able to move right into that process, and so that'll be good. I want to thank you all for completing the survey that was sent out by our consultant working on the new logo. I sent 45 individuals surveys. We got 39 responses, so that was pretty good. We will be meeting either later this week or early next week with those folks to talk about those results. And then lastly, I just want to remind you of a couple of events coming up in Millwood. National Shop Small Saturday always takes place on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. This year, the Millwood Community Association, along with the Spokane County Library, is doing a week-long Shop Small event that includes contests and prizes with lots of local Millwood businesses. I would recommend that you, if you're interested in participating in that, check out the Community Association's website at millwoodnow.org. Along with that, on December 2nd from 4 to 7, over at the paper mill and our Dalton area there by the corner door, we will be having the tree lighting and the Christmas market put on by the Community Association. Again, that's December 2nd from 4 to 7. And that's all I have for you tonight, unless you have any questions for me.
Questions for Christina? No questions for Christina? All right, we will move on to our legal report.
That will be quick as well, just to echo what the mayor said in terms of the connection ordinance. We'll be beefing that up to not only add enforcement, but penalties, including termination of water service as a potential penalty for the city, as well as an indemnification provision that will provide that to the extent a contamination event can be attributed back to a particular property, the city will seek indemnification and reimbursement of all costs associated with that, so we don't have to go, well, to the extent we can avoid a situation like this, we can have those enforcement mechanisms on the books. Punted on an executive session earlier, just wanted to let the council know that we did commence the condemnation action against Inland Empire Paper. That was filed. There's council have been in contact on the matter. We are continuing to push for a possession and use. As we talked about before, the fact that we did not get a possession and use agreement prior to commencing litigation is what basically aced the city out of potential funding at that point in time. We're continuing to push because we're hopeful that we can at least get past that process in the litigation, focus on what the fair market value is, and possibly if a funding opportunity arises, we can be in that situation. What has become clear to, at least in my mind, is that the city has been, one of the points that Inland Empire Paper had communicated throughout is that they wanted to have their own engineering analysis to ensure that there would be access to their property on a 24/7 basis. We have provided them plans. There's been communications back to late last year through early this year, and was told last week that they had just engaged their engineer to start looking at their access concerns. So not sure we would have got to any point whatsoever had we not had to file the condemnation action. Hopefully it is going to bring some movement on the side of the parties. Nobody likes litigation, but that is the last link in the process for the city to move forward with a project that has, again, been in planning for well over a decade. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Brian on legal? Thank you, Brian. I've talked enough this evening. I'm going to forgo any mayor report. Council information, I think we didn't have anything. We were waiting for our scraps and our sheriff's reports, so we will distribute those to the council when we get them. Public remarks. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on any subject except for action items on the meeting. So if anybody in the audience wishes to step forward and address the council, you have that opportunity. Did we receive any written remarks?
We did not.
Second call for public comment. Public remarks, sorry. Third and final call for public remarks. Seeing nobody sprint to the mic, we will move on from there. Council remarks. We'll start with the telephonic voice. Mr. Stravens, do you have any remarks this evening? Second call for Mr. Stravens. Third and final call for Mr. Stravens. Seeing no Mr. Stravens?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Mr. Stravens here. Mr. Stravens had his phone muted, her request. So yes, I have several comments. First, I'd like to commend the city staff, Public Works, on the handling of the water system. I think we did a fine job with that. The residents should be happy. They should feel rest assured that we're on top of it. Second thing is, I'd still like the council work towards, I know Mr. Worth's comments and the mayor's comment, camping ordinance. I'd still like to address that in the future. And then thirdly, when we do get to the point to talk about the Argonne project, I'd like to talk about enhancement of pedestrian crossing, different options to make sure that we can actually access the east side, west side of the city since it divides the city. So those are future action items that I'd like to see happen in discussion with the council.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Stravens. We will remember those and bring those forward as they come about.
Thank you.
Mr. Culler.
Thanks to city staff and Paul for handling the water thing. That's about it.
Mr. Van Hees.
Nothing.
Mr. Sander.
No comments?
Thank you. All right. So now we get to the hard part tonight. Do we have any announcements? All right. So now we have to set the next meeting. So people, Kelly, please get your calendars out because we need to have a special meeting. I would like to propose we have a special meeting for Tuesday, the 15th at 6 p.m. Anyone? Anyone can't make that?
I'm good with November 15th at 6 p.m.
I'll do it.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will set a special meeting. Agenda will be published in the future for Tuesday, November the 15th at 6 p.m. here, and that will be the presentation of the budget meeting, or the budget, 2023 budget, preliminary budget, thank you. And then we will set our next regular meeting for December 13th, 2022 at 6 p.m. With that, I look to, with no further business before us, I look to a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. This meeting is adjourned. Oh, wait, all in favor of adjourning the meeting? Kelly?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now, any opposed? This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.